Hi friends, Geo here. Welcome back to my channel. I write gay, m4m, male, short romance. I'm writing the kind of stuff I like to read, and I wish it had been around years ago. If this interests you, I invite you to check out my channel for more soft-spoken stories about gay men. I'm rather fond of the story called Class Reunion. I'll leave a link in the comments. Give it a listen if you would, and let me know what you think. Your input helps me become a better writer. Anyway, it's time to visit the Nuestra mining colony and check in with Rias and Ian. The dark is not my usual style, but I had to try my hand at writing gay science fiction. The synopsis? Ian is flying Shuttle 2 to rescue some miners and find the missing drone. The raiders found him, but he had learned a couple of things from his boyfriend and defeated the raiders. Rias, Emilio, and Carla have just realized that the raiders will be on their way to Nuestra, either to rescue Perlita and Tristan or kill them. The big problem, the Nuestra mining colony is defenseless. And now, Chapter 20 of The Dark. North Dome Atmospherics. Rias. How dare you show off and make me the laughingstock of the colony, Hector yelled. I was back in North Dome Atmospherics, sitting at my large table and fighting both the exhaustion and a headache. The finished replica of the Adi-Shachar stood at the far end of my table. A couple of finished processors stood next to it, waiting for one of the team to take them and install them. Next to that were the unfinished casing and parts for Emilio's new datapad. It only waited for the AI modules, which Emilio would order when the next cargo hauler arrived. And next to that were the pieces for Doc's new shiny cart. I had another processor in front of me, ready for me to pull it apart. Hector, my new boss, was upset at me. Again. But I am so tired, and I've rebuilt so many processors that I don't want to pay attention. I force myself to. What are you talking about? I said, sliding the cover off of the processor. It smelled of an acrid, electronic kind of smoke. It must be another burned-out motherboard. Datapad, run electrical diagnostic. Everybody says North Dome smells better because you fix things right. Everybody says the plants are responding better because the filters are working better. Everybody says... You're not listening to me, Hector screamed. I don't care how good you think you are. I worked here for 20 years, and I won't be shown up by a kid half my age. Sorry, sir. I took my crutch and hobbled over to one of the bins and found a replacement motherboard. Then I went to another bin and found some of the thinner wire, because when the motherboard burns out, there's a good chance the wires around it are fried. I had to keep busy because it was the only way I could deal with the stress. With my boyfriend Ian and my best friend Gutierrez flying where the raiders could shoot them down any second, I had to keep my mind occupied, or I'd worry myself back into medical. And now Hector's yelling at me for doing my job? I am too tired to fight. Stand still while I'm yelling at you, Hector screamed, stomping after me. My co-workers remained at their tables, but they stared at us. This was Nuestra. In 2 minutes, everybody in the 5 domes would know about this. The serious problem? If I stressed again, Doc would have to rebuild the nanite colonies, keeping me alive. No matter the cost, I have to stay calm, and the best way to do that is to find a project and dive in. You aren't listening, Hector yelled. A little bit of adrenaline surged through me, and I said, I don't have time to sit still, so if you want to yell, then yell. I've got work to do. You have no respect for my authority. I'm head of North Dome Atmospherics. Yes, you are, I said, tilting the processor on its side so I could get a better angle at the electronics inside. Electrical diagnostic completed, my datapad said. Dim lights, and display the interior electrical schematic holographically, please, I said. An image of the processor floated above my workstation, with a network of wires lining it almost like veins. The motherboard and a few other components flashed red. I am your boss. You will pay attention when I am speaking, or you will find another job, Hector yelled. I shambled over to another bin for the extra parts I needed, then back to my workstation. A new job. Got it. Are you done? Because I have 5 processors that I need to fix, Emilio's new datapad to rewire, and the Madre crew have found something they need help with. Not to mention Manuel with the reactor crew has connected new power feeds for the Adi Shachar AI and hardwired it to a temporary system. He needs them tested. I wanted to tell Hector that I wouldn't have to repair so many processors if he used the right parts, or learned how to weld so the dust doesn't get into the electronics, or used a higher grade lubricant so fan bearings had an easier time to move. I had to stay calm. Stress will disrupt the fragile nanite colonies in my bones. I turned away, scanned the hologram, and leaned into the processor to get a better look at the motherboard and its connecting wires. So you think you're indispensable, Hector screamed. Hector, I said, finally fed up with his attitude. If you've been here for so long, then why do you screw up the electronics so bad? I've seen the quality of your work, and I could weld better than you when I was 5. Somebody in the room chuckled, but I didn't look up. Hector slammed his hand on my table, scattering my careful rows of parts and tools. I don't care what Emilio says. You're fired. Go complain to Emilio, I said, carefully removing the old motherboard. It had a lot more carbon scoring than I had planned on. At least that way you'll leave me alone long enough to get some work done. Datapad, check the regulator for signs of a power surge. I suspect this unit had an internal fire. Regulator functioning within normal parameters, my datapad said. I took another look. Somebody had used a number 3 grade wire instead of a 4, and that couldn't handle the power. This unit will require a complete rewiring. Datapad, who was the last person who worked on this unit? Hector Alvarez, head of North Dome Atmospherics, my datapad said, as I removed the first of the blackened wires. Hector, if you're done yelling, bring me some of the number 4 wire. I'll need 2.5 meters, I said. You do not give orders in my department, Hector screamed. It will take me an hour to fix this processor because you don't know how to do your job, I said, and bent a little to get at more burnt wires. Hector inhaled and bellowed, Pack your things and get. Rias, I brought you some real food, my little sister, Dalila, yelled, walking in, carrying 2 plates of rice and beans, and some kind of burrito? Rafaela told Carla, who told Val, who told Karina, who told Maria, that's the lady I'm staying with, and she told me that all you eat is cookies. Maria said that Doc doesn't know what he's doing and you need real food. She says you're skinnier than an asparagus, and I don't like those, so I'm here to make you eat, and I don't care what your boss says. You are eating right now, or I'm going to get as mad as Manuel got that time you fixed one of his tools, but it burned out. The guys at the tables didn't bother to hide their smiles. Rias, is everybody mad at you? One of them whispered. That's normal, I said, and quickly restored my tools and parts to their right places. I gave my little sister a hug. I think you yell better than Doc. Hector folded his arms and glared at me. I tried stopping Dalila, Roland said, walking right behind her, but she's just like you, Rias. She doesn't listen to anybody. That's right. I'm just like my big brother, except I'm louder, Dalila said, setting the plates carefully in front of me. She knew I had to have things lined up, and respected that. Eat. Or I'm telling Emilio, and he'll get security to make you eat, and if that doesn't work, I'm telling Ian you won't eat. He'll spoon-fed you with that arm you made him, and then I'll tell Doc you're not eating, so he'll put it in a tube and shove it in your stomach. Rias, you better do what she says, because she's scarier than you, and she's only 8, Roland said, chuckling, and stepped next to Hector. That's right, Rias can build things, but I'm scarier, Dalila said. She gave me a spoon and stood at my side, arms folded, and giving as serious a stare as she could. Okay, I surrender, I said, trying to peek into the burrito to see what was in it. What is it? My new favorite, a cheeseburger burrito. It has beef and cheese and pickles and onions and lettuce and tomatoes and guacamole and ketchup and mustard and French fries rolled up in a big tortilla. That sounds so good, I think I'll ask North Dome Food Court to put it on the menu. Do you think you could bring me one? Roland said. Hector glared at my sister, tightening his fist. I pulled my sister next to my other side, so I stood between her and Hector. What do you want to eat first? Dalila said. Chocolate chip cookies, but you didn't bring any. I'll try the rice and beans. I scooped up some rice and beans and filled my mouth. Hector, Roland said, if you're having trouble with Rias working here, you need to talk to Doc. He originally suggested North Dome atmospherics to Emilio, and Emilio liked the idea. They expect me to work with him? I can't, and I won't. Look at this place. He reorganized everything, from tools to parts to scrap. Look at the tables and the floors. He's drawn diagrams everywhere. His datapad, I swear it analyzed processors almost as fast as he does. First, Rias stays, Roland said. I took a small bite of the burrito. Unusual, but not bad. Second, I think everybody who lives in North Dome wants Rias to stay here. North Dome is starting to smell fresher than South Dome, Roland said. I'm not working with Rias, Hector said. How am I supposed to work when I can't find anything? Rias has no respect for authority. He never listens, and he fixes things his way, in spite of what anybody tells him to do. He's unreliable because he's either at medical or helping Emilio or working on Madre or is sick. Does he get his work done? Roland asked. That's the other problem. We came in the other day and he had fixed everything. Processors, flickering lights, even the old wheel lock. I had to let everybody go home because there was nothing to do. Rias won't go home. He stays here and works all the time until somebody comes and gets him for some stupid reason or he passes out. I need a worker who is consistently here and listens to me. Marcial warned me about Rias, and I should have demanded that Emilio find another place for him, Hector yelled. Rias, does that mean you're getting another job? My sister said. You should go to North Dome Food Court because they are having trouble with one of their heating units, and they're always complaining about a refrigeration unit. You stopped eating. Do you want me to call Emilio? Dalila said. I took another bite of the cheeseburger burrito. Roland pulled out his datapad and made some notes on it. As I see it, there are 3 options. Either you take early shift and Rias takes afternoon shift, or Rias takes early shift and you take afternoon shift, or we transfer you to another atmospherics. We could move Elizabeth from South Dome atmospherics up to North Dome. That would put her closer to her kids, and she's been asking about that. Rias, what time do you see Doc every day? I ate a little rice and beans to keep my sister from yelling at me again. It's flexible, usually in the mornings, and the treatments last for an hour. Sometimes I have 2 treatments in a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. When you're not out wandering salvage, Carla's still mad at you about that, Roland said, flipping through a couple of screens on his datapad. Morning shift for Hector and afternoon shift for Rias. I don't like it, Dalila said. I have school in the morning, and I'll never get to see my brother. Just have a late lunch, Roland said. This is my department. I handle scheduling, and I don't like any of your options. Rias will move. I'm talking to Emilio now, Hector said, and stormed out of North Dome atmospherics. I took another bite of rice and beans, glad for the peace and quiet. At least Doc won't have to rebuild my nanite colonies today. How come you're down here, Roland? Just a second. I'm sending the basics of our conversation to Emilio, Roland said, tapping his datapad. Rios, you stopped eating, Dalila said, hands on hips and frowning at me. Sorry, I said, and quickly took another bite of rice and beans. Reason I'm down here? A new cargo hauler, the Swift Current, came through the jump gate. One of its capacitor relays burned out in jump space, and somehow it's preventing the grav engines from working, Roland said. It sounds like feedback in one of the power relays. If it's an older model, the discharge probably fried one of the circuit boards, maybe even a localized regulator. Do you want me to go out there and take a look? I said. Even if Doc would let you leave. Carla wouldn't, and North Dome would mutiny if you did. They like the better air quality, Roland said. Shuttle 1 has already left to help tow it here. I imagine you'll be busy tomorrow. Did they send the specs? I asked. Carla has them, but we have another problem that takes priority, Roland said. I won't let Rios help on anything until after he eats every bite, Dalila said. I ate another bite of rice and beans. Eat, and I'll tell you about it on the tram, Roland said. Dalila, I'll make sure he finishes. No, I want to watch him. He stays here, Dalila said, and stepped between me and Roland. Eat, Rios. I'm not having an asparagus for a brother. Roland sighed and flipped through a couple of screens. Emilio has a big project for Rios. Madre, gravlift to my location. It will arrive in 1 minute, Madre said. Rios can't go until he eats, and I'll tell Emilio that. She pulled up her datapad. Madre, get me Emilio right now. Emilio here. What's up, Dalila? He said. Rios can't come and help you until he's done eating. I won't let him, Dalila said. You better hurry and finish, Roland said to me. Well, Rios, I guess you have a problem, Emilio said. You better hurry before you have both me and Dalila mad at you. Hector's mad at him, too. Did you get the files I sent? Roland said. I did, Emilio said, and ran a hand over his dreadlocks. Why do the simple things become the most complicated? We'll deal with Hector's tantrum later. Get Rios here, fast. Somehow I crammed the last of the food in my mouth. I'm done, I said, with a mouth crammed full of cheeseburger burrito. We're on our way, Roland said. Dalila, maybe I should put you in charge of Rios's meals. You're right, he does look like an asparagus. Dalila crossed her arms and gave me that sisterly look that said, I told you so. I had not eaten that much since before the Adishachar crashed, and my stomach ached. As I hugged Dalila and watched her run to one of the playgrounds, a grav lift pulled up, and we climbed in. We exited the tram in South Dome, where another grav lift waited. It took us to the far edge of South Dome, and the airlock. Emilio stood in a yellow vac suit, as did several people from the Madre team. Hector, not in a yellow or orange vac suit, stood next to Emilio, arms waving wildly and yelling. Carla and several people from Salvage and South Dome Atmospherics had set up a large inflatable airlock around the dome's airlock and were testing the seal's integrity. Doc stood next to Emilio, finishing the last fastenings on his yellow vac suit. He glanced up as we approached. Will it hold? Roland said to Carla. We've never had to set one up for a dome airlock, Carla said. I don't know if it can handle the pressure, and if it does, I don't know how long it will hold. Check again, Emilio said. Hector, Rios stays at Atmospherics because it is the only place we can put him. It's close to his apartment, is not too physical, close to the food court, close to the tram, close to people in case he collapses. So it's ideal. Heaven knows I'd like to have him look at South Dome sewers, but I think Doc and Carla and half of North Dome would strangle me if I did. Marcial and the Azul Mines found a way to work with Rios. His teachers did too. I expect you will as well. Marcial was a coward and stayed out of his way. I've had it with Rios. If he stays in North Dome Atmospherics, I'll take the transfer to South Dome Atmospherics, Hector said. Roland, Emilio said, pulling his graying dreadlocks back so he could put the helmet on. When we're done here, please make the arrangements. What are you doing here? Hector said. Trying to prevent a disaster, Carla said. Tristan and Perlita did to this airlock what they did to Madre. Doc walked over to me and shook his head, but he gave me a small grin. You definitely have a way with people. When we're done here, I want you in medical for another treatment, and let's see if I need to rebuild the nanite colonies. I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. You must be the worst patient in Nuestra. Ian's still gone, so I might as well sleep there tonight, I said. You might want to reconsider that, Doc said. I got word that Dr. Takanaka is on the cargo hauler coming in. That name's familiar, I said. Bentleythwaite R&D. He has developed an experimental nanite treatment and wants to talk to you the moment he lands, Emilio said. How much will this cost Nuestra? I asked. Not a single credit, Doc said. If this works, the patents will pay for everything. That's tomorrow's problem, Roldan said. Good point, Emilio said. Rias, the people at Madre found something that points to this airlock. I want you and your datapad to make a complete diagnostic and see what you find. What did they find? I asked. I'll tell you that after you give us your opinion, Emilio said. Doc and Roldan helped me into a yellow suit, but we didn't seal it. Datapad, complete diagnostic of the South Dome airlock, including power feeds, atmospheric integrity, everything, I said. I tapped my new datapad to the inner airlock controls, then those inside the airlock. Then I sealed my suit to check the controls outside the airlock. Then I traced the power relays, checked the motherboards. My datapad vibrated, then it beeped inside my helmet, and a warning screen flashed on my suit's display. AI module located, my datapad said. Show me its specs on the helmet display, I said. What had Perlita and Tristan done to the airlock? The AI was on the outside of the airlock, where few people go. I sent the serial number to Carla, then traced some of the wires with my datapad. It's one of the 5, she said. Can you tell what it's doing? Emilio said. No, it's in dormant mode. Unfortunately, it's in the exterior control panel fastened to the main motherboard. It also has an independent power supply and is rigged with a short-range communications relay, but I suspect it's also wired into the colony comm system. Another thing, the AI is hardwired directly to the motherboard, I said. I disassembled the control panel to take a closer look. Datapad, helmet display, increase exterior lights, and increase display sensitivity. Zoom in, show me current power feeds to this door. The AI module was behind the motherboard. Careful with what I touched, I eased the motherboard to the side a little to look at the AI module. Somebody knew what they were doing, I said over the comms. To remove it, we have to pull apart the entire panel. Depending on how it's set up, it could trigger both airlock doors to open at once. You're confirming what we already suspected, Emilio said. How would you remove it? One of the Madre techs asked. An older man named Drendon, who lived in South Dome. He had a wife, 2 kids, and several grandkids about Dalila's age. Without knowing what it is supposed to do, I'd be paranoid. I'd divide into 3 teams. First team, preserve integrity of South Dome. Inflatable airlock to keep the atmosphere in, and maybe remove the inner airlock motherboard. And hard close the inner airlock door, so it will stay closed no matter what the AI tells it to do. The second team would remove both the AI and the motherboard and check for any other surprises. Third team would perform emergency repairs until maintenance can rebuild the panels. Once that's done, the first team could remove the inflatable airlock. Why would the raiders spend all this trouble on an airlock? Roland said. We'll worry about that later. I like the plan, but I want to evacuate South Dome first. Carla, you will lead the first team and keep South Dome breathing. I want a hard lock to avoid any potential problems. Rias, I know you can do this, but both Doc and I and pretty much everybody are worried about your condition. You'll monitor and instruct the second team as needed, but from inside the dome. Drendon, you'll lead the second team. Third team, Roldan, get what you need, you're leading. I'd like to preserve this AI and motherboard. Maybe we can learn something from them. Madre, get me colony-wide communications. Drendon walked up to me. For a man with a rep, you don't look that scary. I'm Drendon, on the Madre team. Heard you and your datapad can make Madre do cartwheels. She had trouble doing somersaults, I said. I bet. When we're done here, I want to talk to you to see how you configured your datapad. And talk to you about some ideas from Madre, he said. I'm not trained with AIs, I said. That doesn't seem to have stopped you, he said. All right, people. South Dome is heading to shelters or getting on the trams. Get started, Emilio said. Drendon and 3 other guys cycled through the airlock. As soon as they were through, Carla pulled the motherboard from the internal panel and hard-locked the airlock doors shut. You're on your own, Drendon. No way in or out until this is done. Once the door closed and they were outside, Drendon pulled apart the rest of the outer panel, handing pieces to his co-workers. Datapad, combine image from their suits so we can see what they're doing, I said. A small holographic image appeared above my datapad of Drendon, the 3 people who went with him, and the exterior of the airlock. Drendon slowly disassembled the entire panel until it seemed like wires stuck in all directions. Emilio, it's too many wires for an airlock panel, Drendon said. Open, close, cycle air. It's pretty basic, Hector said. Hector, you complained about Rias not listening, Roland said. Evidently, you don't either. Get to a shelter or get out of South Dome. That's different, Hector grumbled, but he laughed. Datapad, pull up an internal schematic of what it should be. Display on holo mode, I said. Drendon, do you want to see a copy on your helmet display? Sure, he said. An instant later, an image floated above my datapad of what the interior panel should look like, and a second image appeared in the faceplate of Drendon's helmet. You're teaching me how to do that, Drendon said, assuming these feeds connect to the main airlock system. And those feeds are short-range comm systems. But these ones I don't know. But I think I see what to do. I pulled up Drendon's suit cam and watched, though his hands often blocked the view. The extra wires didn't make sense. The mother and AI controlled a lot more than a simple door. I'm removing the motherboard now, so I can get at the... Drendon said. The panel exploded in a shower of sparks. Drendon flew backwards, landing 3 meters away. He didn't move. Thank you for listening. Let's talk AIs. Though there is a lot of talk about machines eventually becoming self-aware and even gaining emotions, for the purposes of this story, there is an upper limit to that. Whether it's because machines will never get to that point, or the corporations have limited the technology, no one knows. There are various types and sizes of AI modules. The smallest is a utility AI used by Mason Garrett Wade in their missiles. It has a limited intelligence, limited ability to perform actions, and is usually only used for limited tasks, like missile guidance systems. Low-grade AIs are the kind used in grav lifts, specialized equipment, and vac suits, and other small uses. By the way, a grav lift is like a small truck, but it hovers on grav fields. Mid-grade AIs are used in larger equipment, like crawlers and shuttles, and Rias' datapad and Ian's arm. Large-grade AIs manage and monitor larger systems, for example, hydroponics or sewage, or any large ship that doesn't go through jump space. Colony AIs are necessary to coordinate either multiple smaller AI systems or control large amounts of data. Because of the complexity of the math necessary to travel through jump space, any ship that travels through the jump gates must have one. They are also necessary to handle the complexity of the systems of a colony. If you have any questions about the technology or about the universe in the dark, leave a comment below. Thank you for sharing the adventure with me. Peace.